Longfri Level 3A Ballistic helmet. This is from Bowtac, and it comes in at $199, which is super cheap for a ballistic helmet. It comes in at around 3.3 pounds. It also says 3.8 pounds, which. Couldn't tell you what might be the packaging weight, but it's a fairly heavy helmet compared to some of the other more expensive options out there. Some of the pros, and I'll let you get a good look at this here as we look at it. If you can see, it attaches most normal attachments on there. If you guys know about how to hook up the Howard Light Ear Pro on there, it's a relatively easy mod to do, but you do have to cut apart Howard Light sets to get them to fit on there. But basically, for that attachment, you just take your standard Howard Lights and you have to actually Dremel off the metal to be able to pull them out of this tab right here. Once you pull those off, you cut off the cover, then you can detach the metal piece, and you're just stuck with a wire and then two muffs. And once you do that, the standard 3M, the Peltor mounts that mount to the arc rail, will actually slide into these. They're not as tight of a fit as what comes with the Howard Light, but they fit pretty snug. They still move up and down and hold their place pretty well. This helmet is it's a standard high cut. It's not the Maritime, so it's got a little bit lower right here instead of being a little bit higher like the Maritime is. So that makes it where your ear pro, if you're mounted on the back like this, doesn't get up as high. So that's just something to consider if you got a long face. But if you have a normal size face, it should work just fine. It'll just be a little bit snug. It does have, one of the pros is it does have an aluminum shroud, which is unusual for some of the cheaper ones that are out there. A lot of times they come with a plastic one. And even more unusual is it's actually a very tight fit. I have a regular, it's a Rhino mount. It's one of the newer ones that has the kind of the dovetail rail that slides out. It's a lot more solid of a mount than the first ones with the little teeth. But it mounts on here just fine. It's actually super snug. There's absolutely no wobble whatsoever. One of the things you notice about this first is the color. I spray painted mine because it just looks cool. But it comes in a tan color, which you can see on the inside, which is what this was originally. But they also come in a OD green and black. Let's talk about some of the pros for buying this. One, it's $199, which is super cheap for what it is. It is tested by Chesapeake to NIJ level 3A standards. So that is a plus compared to some of the other ones out there that may not have any kind of certification or just say that they're tested, quote unquote, to whatever standard they want to throw out there. So, but even if you don't trust it, it's still kind of, I would put it somewhere in between something like an OpsCore helmet or Team Windy or something like that and just a bump helmet. So if you're wanting some protection, but you can't afford something nicer than that, this might be a good option for you. And it's better than bump helmet because it'll serve all those same roles. But it also has some weight behind it. So if you're using some NVGs, the weight of the helmet itself will actually help keep it from going forward from the weight of the NVGs. You can also attach a counterweight like right here. But with this helmet, you really, unless you have a really heavy pair of NVGs, you probably won't need much of a counterweight. This actually just has batteries in it. And they're lithium batteries, so they don't weigh hardly anything. But that was just extra storage space I could put on there, and it doesn't weigh much, and it helps counteract it a little bit. Some of the other positives I got for it, other than the shroud, which I mentioned, the padding on the inside is relatively comfortable. It works fine. The only thing I would change about it is this dial system, and that's kind of one of the negatives, is this dial system, it will, as you can see, it'll get smaller and larger, and it will snug up against your head, but it won't get tight to where it'll actually hold it snug. If you were to move it around, it would come slightly loose. It holds it in place good enough, especially with the straps, like it's not going anywhere. If you put on the earmuffs attachment on here, these actually hold it to your head pretty snug, where really the dial system doesn't matter anyways. But that's just something to take note of. It comes with standard arc rails on the side. As you can see there, they are made of a, I won't say lower quality material, because I haven't just taken one off to snap it and see where it breaks, but it feels like a flimsier plastic than what would come on a more expensive helmet. But that said, they work just fine. I haven't had any problems with them. I've mounted a bunch of different stuff on here, slidden it on and off, and nothing has broken as of yet. Something else about it is, like I said before, it is pretty comfortable. The straps adjust. It's got kind of a fake kind of, actually this might actually be a real leather, but it's a leather material under here, so it's pretty comfortable. I've worn it for hours and hasn't been a problem comfort wise. One of the nice things too is if you do mount a counterweight back here, the screws that come for the arc rail are actually long enough to go straight through, and it still threads in with extra thread. So you don't have to worry about that threading coming undone. And if you do mess with the screws, I would advise putting some Loctite on those threads. Keep them from backing out. Another pro for it is really just the fact that you can attach everything to it. It has all the normal Velcro, the NVG shrouds. It's got the bungees there for your NVGs if you want to use those. It's got Velcro everywhere you'd want it. You could always add more Velcro if you really wanted to. But so far I haven't had any issues of anything breaking, low quality, so it's going well so far. Some cons for it is heavier than your standard high cut helmet, which it could be good or bad depending on how you look at it. If you're going for super light, then adding all this stuff on there is just going to make it even heavier and may not be for you. But that weight does help, especially if you're using NVGs to keep it from really needing a counterweight and having to add a ton of weight on there, especially if you're using like PVS 14 or something that's kind of lighter. That'll help with that. Also, like I mentioned, the dial system is pretty cheesy. I'm not going to call it useless because it does still tighten on there. I've taken it apart. There are screws under this pad right here that you can actually undo and look on the inside. There's not really anything you can do to tighten that tension, at least that I've been able to do. Maybe you could modify it somehow if you wanted to, but I haven't been able to. The last thing I'll say about this helmet before I let you all get back to what you're doing is, for the price, I mean, you can't really beat this. I've seen some other helmets out there. There's companies like Hard Hat Veterans and a few other ones that are out there that make helmets for anywhere from $300 to $400, which is still pretty cheap compared to like looking at Team Windy or Opscore or something like that. But this helmet, for the price, if you're looking at it just for something that'll stop maybe shrapnel or glancing blows, something like that, or work just as a bump helmet with weight, so you don't have to add weight, because a lot of people will run bump helmets with weight on the end, which, I mean, is great, but you have to have a counterweight, otherwise it's just going to tip forward with your NVGs. So you could just have this from the get-go, get that extra ballistic protection or any kind of extra protection over just a plastic bump helmet. So I have attached a few things to it. This is a white light, but I also have NVG lights on my gun and everything else. But the everything I've attached on here is held solid. It doesn't come with any arc rail adapter plates, at least mine didn't. I had to use these from something else to put them on there. But overall, pretty satisfied with this helmet. It's pretty nice. If you look at it from there, I never noticed any workmanship qualities problems with it. It seems sealed. It is made, this is the reason why it's heavier, it is made of Kevlar. I don't know if you can see that on the inside, the label, but it does say Kevlar. This is size medium large. NIJ 3A on there. Shelf life is 5 years, which most stuff is rated for 5 years. I imagine it would last longer than that. But for safety reasons and probably so they don't get sued, they have to put it on there. Just like most ballistic plates, if you ever look at it, they're 5 to 10 year shelf life. And that's because if it gets some sort of scratch or if the shell is compromised somehow and it gets moisture in there, it can ruin that material, where it won't be as effective. But if you have any comments, I'll try to, or questions, I'll just put them in the comment section below, and I'll try to answer them as best I can. But so far, this comes from Bowtech, like I said, $199. It's hard to beat because there's a lot of bump helmets out there that cost the exact same price. And you might as well get a little bit of added protection if you're going to add the weight, like I said, for NVGs anyways. But again, if you have any questions, just comment down below. Thank you.